Hello and welcome to Wisdom Forge. Parental stress changes baby DNA, Epigenetics explained. Parental stress changes baby DNA, Epigenetics explained. The idea that stress during pregnancy can alter a baby's DNA might sound like science fiction, but it's a well-documented scientific reality. When parents experience chronic stress, it doesn't just affect their mood, it sends biological signals that can modify how a baby's genes function. These changes occur through epigenetic mechanisms, which are like molecular switches that turn genes on or off without changing the underlying DNA sequence. This process represents one of nature's most fascinating adaptations, allowing environmental factors to temporarily influence genetic expression during critical developmental windows. The epigenetic symphony, how stress conducts genes. Imagine your DNA as a piano and epigenetic markers as the pianist's fingers. Stress hormones like cortisol act as sheet music, guiding which keys get played and how loudly. During pregnancy, these hormonal signals from the stressed parent cross the placental barrier and influence which of the baby's genes become active or remain silent. Particularly vulnerable are genes involved in stress response, immune function, and brain development. The fetus essentially receives biological messages about the world it's about to enter, adjusting its developmental trajectory accordingly, a process called fetal programming. Cortisol's crossover, the stress hormone highway. Normally, the placenta acts as a protective filter, but stress hormones have a special pass to get through. Maternal cortisol mirrors in fetal blood within just 15 minutes, creating a direct biochemical connection between parent and baby's stress levels. While short bursts are normal and even beneficial, chronic elevation teaches the developing fetus to maintain a heightened stress response. This explains why babies of highly stressed parents often show elevated cortisol levels themselves at birth, setting up patterns that can last a lifetime. The telomere effect, stress and cellular aging before birth. Some of the most startling epigenetic changes involve telomeres, the protective caps at the ends of chromosomes that act as biological clocks. Prenatal stress has been linked to shorter telomeres in newborns, effectively making their cells appear older from birth. This accelerated cellular aging may predispose children to earlier health challenges and influence longevity. The silver lining? These changes aren't necessarily permanent, and supportive environments after birth can help compensate for prenatal stress effects. Nature's warning system, why this happens evolutionarily. From an evolutionary perspective, these epigenetic changes made sense. If a mother experienced frequent stress, like food scarcity or danger, programming her baby to be more reactive to threats could improve survival chances. However, in our modern world where stressors are more psychological than physical, this adaptation can backfire. The baby's system becomes primed for threats that never materialize, potentially leading to heightened anxiety, inflammation, and metabolic issues later in life. Father's stress matters too, the sperm connection. While maternal stress during pregnancy gets most attention, paternal stress before conception also plays a role. Stress can alter the epigenetic markers in sperm, particularly affecting genes related to brain development. Animal studies show stressed father mice pass on anxious traits to offspring through these molecular changes. In humans, paternal stress has been linked to changes in infant stress reactivity and emotional regulation, proving parenting stress effects begin even before conception. The placenta's surprising role as stress translator. The placenta isn't just a passive filter, it actively interprets and modulates stress signals. It contains an enzyme barrier that normally protects the fetus from excessive cortisol by converting it to an inactive form. However, chronic stress can overwhelm this system. Additionally, the placenta itself can be epigenetically modified by stress, changing how it functions throughout pregnancy. This explains why some babies seem more protected from parental stress than others. Placental health and resilience play crucial mediating roles. Stress versus depression, different biological impacts. Not all prenatal distress affects the fetus equally. While both stress and depression involve cortisol, depression also involves different inflammatory markers that may uniquely influence fetal development. Anxious stress tends to produce more epigenetic changes in genes related to fear responses, while depressive symptoms may more strongly affect immune function genes. Understanding these nuances helps explain why siblings exposed to different types of parental distress in utero might show different health trajectories. The immune system's memory, prenatal stress and future allergies. Epigenetic changes from prenatal stress particularly affect immune system genes, essentially teaching the developing immune system to overreact. This may explain the dramatic rise in childhood allergies and autoimmune conditions. The fetal immune system, receiving stress signals indicating potential environmental threats, becomes primed to see harmless substances, like foods or pollen, as dangers. These changes can persist for years, although early microbiome exposure may help counteract some effects. Brain wiring, how stress shapes neural pathways. Prenatal stress doesn't just affect general health, it literally shapes how babies' brains form connections. Epigenetic changes influence neuron growth patterns, particularly in areas governing emotional regulation like the amygdala and prefrontal cortex. These structural differences help explain why some children seem naturally more anxious or have harder time calming down. Their stress response systems develop differently in the womb based on the biological signals they received. The sugar connection, stress and metabolic programming. One of the most profound epigenetic effects involves metabolic genes. Prenatal stress often leads to epigenetic changes that make children more likely to store fat and develop insulin resistance. This was evolutionarily advantageous when stress predicted food scarcity, helping the baby conserve energy. Today, with abundant nutrition, this programming contributes to childhood obesity and metabolic disorders. The changes affect how the body processes sugar, regulates appetite, and distributes fat stores. The good news, epigenetics isn't destiny. While these findings might sound alarming, epigenetic changes are potentially reversible. The same plasticity that allows environmental factors to influence gene expression means positive changes after birth can help recalibrate systems. Skin-to-skin contact, responsive parenting, and nurturing environments can help rewrite some of the stress-related epigenetic marks. The first 3 years of life represent another window of opportunity for positive epigenetic influence. Measuring the marks, new scientific breakthroughs. Scientists can now detect specific epigenetic changes in newborns that correlate with maternal stress levels during pregnancy. The most studied marks involve genes regulating the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal (HPA) axis, our central stress response system. Some hospitals are beginning to use these biomarkers to identify newborns who might benefit from early stress reduction interventions, although this raises important ethical considerations about labeling and stigma. Cultural stress, societal factors that trickle down to DNA. It's not just personal stress that matters. Societal stressors like racism, poverty, and food insecurity create epigenetic changes that can persist across generations. Studies show grandchildren of women who experience famine during pregnancy have different epigenetic marks and health outcomes. This helps explain health disparities that can't be accounted for by current circumstances alone. The biological echoes of ancestral stress live on in our genes. Protective factors. What counters prenatal stress effects? Certain factors seem to buffer against these epigenetic changes. Omega-3 fatty acids appear to protect against some stress-induced methylation patterns. Regular moderate exercise during pregnancy helps regulate maternal cortisol levels. Strong social support networks dramatically reduce the biological impact of stress. Perhaps most importantly, the knowledge that occasional stress is normal and that perfection isn't required helps prevent the additional stress of worrying about stress. Dad's voice, an unexpected epigenetic tool. Emerging research suggests that when fathers regularly talk to the baby in utero, it may trigger positive epigenetic changes. The vibrations of deep voices penetrate the womb and seem to stimulate genes involved in healthy neural development. This provides an easy, free way for fathers to actively participate in positive fetal programming, counterbalancing any stress-related epigenetic effects. The grandparent effect, multigenerational epigenetic echoes. Epigenetic changes from stress can sometimes skip a generation or manifest differently in grandchildren. Animal studies show that while the children of stressed parents may show certain adaptations, their offspring might display different but related patterns as the epigenetic marks are reinterpreted across generations. This highlights how our choices today may influence not just our children but our future descendants in ways we're only beginning to understand. Practical takeaways: what expectant parents should really do. The goal isn't to eliminate all stress, that's impossible and unnecessary. Focus instead on recovery, making sure stress periods are balanced by genuine relaxation. Prioritize sleep, nourishing food, and positive relationships. Remember that your baby benefits most from your overall well-being pattern, not perfection in every moment. If you experience significant stress, don't panic, just seek support and know that postnatal care can help compensate. Beyond guilt, a new understanding of fetal origins. This science shouldn't be used to guilt parents. Stress is inevitable, and human development is resilient. Instead, it highlights why supporting expecting parents matters for public health. Workplace policies, parental leave, and community support systems take on new importance when we understand how they influence not just current well-being but the biological foundations of the next generation. We're all collectively responsible for creating societies that foster healthy fetal programming. Thank you, and let's stay connected. Thank you for joining me on this journey of discovery. If you found this video valuable, imagine what you'll learn next. Subscribe to Wisdom Forge and hit the bell icon so you never miss more thought-provoking content, practical wisdom for everyday life, the tools to unlock your full potential. Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your biggest takeaway or what topics you'd like to see next. Until next time, keep growing, keep learning.